They searched for him for months. 10 men broke out of a Louisiana prison, 9 got caught. But one man, Derrick Groves, vanished. Some said he'd fled the country. Others thought he was hiding in the woods. But when police finally found him, it wasn't in Mexico. It wasn't overseas. It was right under their feet, hiding in a crawl space beneath his girlfriend's house in Atlanta. The crazy part? She's the one who turned him in. This story isn't just about a jailbreak. It's about pride, choices, and how one argument can end 5 months of freedom. After 4 months on the run, fugitive Derrick Groves from Louisiana has finally been captured, bringing an end to one of the state's most notorious jailbreak sagas in decades. Groves was the last remaining escapee among 10 prisoners who made headlines for their dramatic breakout. Authorities tracked him down more than 460 miles away in a quiet neighborhood in southwest Atlanta, where a tense standoff unfolded between local police, Atlanta's SWAT team, and the U.S. Marshals Service. According to officials who spoke with CNN, the breakthrough came when Crime Stoppers Greater New Orleans received a crucial tip. Acting swiftly, investigators followed the lead and, after about 3 hours of meticulous work, cornered Groves inside a nearby home. The confrontation escalated when SWAT officers deployed gas multiple times, forcing Groves out and bringing the manhunt to a close. When officers finally found Derrick Groves, it wasn't in some distant hideout, an abandoned warehouse, or a remote cabin deep in the woods. He wasn't halfway across the world using a fake passport, as some had speculated. Instead, the man who had managed to evade authorities for nearly 5 months was discovered tucked inside a cramped crawl space beneath a modest home in Atlanta, Georgia. Dust, cobwebs, and insulation surrounded him as law enforcement officers descended on the property, ending one of Louisiana's most talked-about prison escapes in decades. Groves' capture marked the final chapter in a story that had gripped headlines for months. A convicted murderer from Louisiana, Groves had earned a reputation not only for his crime but for his unlikely ability to remain out of sight long after his fellow fugitives had been caught. His criminal past was as dark as his disappearance was bold. Back in 2018, during a Mardi Gras block party that was supposed to be a night of celebration and community, chaos erupted when Groves and several others opened fire into a crowd using an AK-47-style rifle. 2 men were killed instantly, and several others were injured. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the local community. A night meant for music and laughter turned into one of mourning and disbelief. When the investigation concluded, Groves was identified as one of the shooters. The trial was swift and decisive. He was found guilty on 2 counts of second-degree murder, along with weapons-related charges, and was sentenced to a lengthy prison term. His fate seemed sealed. Another life lost to poor decisions and senseless violence. But Groves had other plans. Fast forward a few years, and Groves became part of a high-profile jailbreak that would dominate Louisiana news. 10 inmates managed to break free, triggering a multi-agency manhunt involving local police, U.S. Marshals, and state corrections officials. Within weeks, 9 of the 10 escapees were recaptured. But Derrick Groves, the most dangerous among them, was nowhere to be found. Authorities combed through leads stretching across several states. Rumors spread fast. Some claimed he had fled to Mexico. Others believed he was hiding in the Caribbean or even on a ship bound for Africa. His name appeared on wanted lists nationwide, and billboards offered tens of thousands of dollars in reward money for information leading to his arrest. Despite the resources, despite the attention, Groves remained invisible. Behind the scenes, investigators suspected that Groves was surviving with help. Few fugitives could stay hidden for that long without someone providing food, shelter, or information. And they were right. As the months passed, the U.S. Marshals Service and Atlanta Police Department began to focus their attention on a small neighborhood in southwest Atlanta. There, through a mix of surveillance, phone records, and community tips, a clearer picture began to emerge. The break in the case came unexpectedly. A Crime Stoppers tip from Greater New Orleans set off a new wave of investigative work. The caller, whose identity was initially protected, gave enough details to send officers directly to a residence connected to Groves' known associates. After roughly 3 hours of observation and follow-up, the truth came out: Derrick Groves was inside the house. But the most shocking part of the story wasn't the tip itself, it was who made it. Many assumed that whoever turned him in was motivated by the $50,000 reward. But as officials later confirmed, the call came from someone far closer to Groves, his girlfriend. In the end, the man who had once eluded capture through cunning and determination was undone by a mix of betrayal and emotion. Reports later revealed that the morning of his arrest began with a heated argument between Groves and his girlfriend. one loud enough for neighbors to overhear. Hours later, SWAT trucks surrounded the property, and officers moved in with precision. The standoff lasted for several tense hours. Atlanta SWAT deployed tear gas multiple times as Groves refused to surrender. Finally, officers breached the home and found him hiding beneath the floorboards, curled up in the dark crawl space that had served as his last refuge. The once elusive fugitive was finally in custody, and the long chase was over. For those who had followed the case, the ending was almost anticlimactic. There had been talk of high-speed pursuits, gunfights, and daring escapes, but instead, the man who had managed to slip past state and federal authorities for months was captured because of a domestic argument and a single phone call. Law enforcement officials later remarked that Groves looked surprisingly unchanged. Despite 5 months on the run, he hadn't altered his appearance. No shaved head, no dyed hair, no disguise. The same face that appeared on wanted posters was the one they found that day. Some officers joked that it made their job easier, while others saw it as proof that Groves had grown complacent, or perhaps simply tired of running. The story of Derrick Groves is one of violence, desperation, and consequence. It's also a reminder of how far pride and fear can push a person. Groves' decision to escape might have felt like freedom in the beginning, the open road, the adrenaline, the illusion of control. But in the end, it led him right back into confinement, only this time under even tighter watch. For the families of his victims, his capture offered some closure. For law enforcement, it was a testament to persistence. And for those watching from the outside, it served as a cautionary tale. You can run from the law, but you can't run from the truth. 5 months of freedom cost Groves the rest of his life, not in distance or disguise, but in the quiet surrender of a man hiding in the dark, waiting for the inevitable sound of boots and breaking wood above him. It turns out Derrick Groves' hideout wasn't far or elaborate at all. He had been staying at his girlfriend's home in Atlanta. According to reports, the morning of his capture began with a heated argument between the two, so loud that neighbors overheard the shouting. Just a few hours later, that same house was surrounded by SWAT officers, who broke down the door and ended Groves' months-long run from the law. Many believe that the fight pushed his girlfriend over the edge, leading her to tip off authorities. Whether she did it out of frustration, fear, or for the $50,000 Crime Stoppers reward, no one knows for sure. What's certain is that her call sealed Groves' fate. Despite months on the run, he hadn't even bothered to change his appearance, making it easier for officers to confirm his identity once they finally caught up to him. For months, investigators believed Derrick Groves had gone to great lengths to disguise himself, perhaps changing his look or living under fake identities. But when they finally found him, it turned out he hadn't altered his appearance at all. Despite being a fugitive for 5 months, Groves looked exactly the same as the day he escaped. His capture quickly made headlines, drawing reactions from across social media, including from Charleston White, who didn't hold back his criticism. In a fiery rant, he expressed frustration toward law enforcement, saying the U.S. Marshals should have made an example out of Groves to discourage future jailbreaks. He went on to mock how the escaped inmates were even making videos and online appearances during their time on the run, but to him, Groves' extended freedom was the ultimate embarrassment for the system. After months of evasion, Groves' story came to an end not with disguise or deception, but with a simple argument, a tip-off, and a swift takedown. Got it? Here's a tight, one-paragraph rewrite that keeps the meaning and tone but reads cleaner and more polished, without adding or softening the substance of the original rant. Charleston White erupted in a profanity-laced tirade, saying he'd locked Derrick Groves away for years, put him in a hole for 15 years so he'd never see daylight, even joking he'd put him next to infamous criminals. The point, he insisted, was to make an example out of him. He railed about the escapees' brazen behavior, mocked those who defended them as players, and confessed blunt disappointment that Groves hadn't been killed during his run, a comment born of anger, not mercy. Though he admitted he'd never been to prison or shot anyone himself, his rage was unmistakable. Groves had gotten away with too much for too long, and justice, in his view, should have been far harsher. When it comes to making choices, Derrick Groves stands as a clear example of what happens when someone refuses to face their own consequences. His escape from prison wasn't just a bid for freedom, it was proof that he didn't want to deal with the outcome of his actions. If he had truly accepted what he did back in 2018, he would have faced his sentence head-on, acknowledging his crimes and living with the result. Instead, he tried to run from reality, only to end up caught again, this time in Atlanta. Many so-called tough guys can talk about loyalty and strength, but the real test comes when life turns against you. If you can't accept the cost of your choices, maybe you were never built for that life in the first place. Living as a fugitive, always wondering who might recognize you, never able to rest or breathe freely, that's not freedom, that's punishment in disguise. The truth is simple. If you don't want to do the time, don't commit the crime. Stay out of trouble, and you'll never have to spend your life looking over your shoulder. At the end of the day, it really is simple. Don't take a life, and don't ruin your own in the process. Too often, men make rash decisions in moments of anger or pride. I'm grateful that now, at 44, I can look back and recognize that truth, but many never reach that point of clarity. In the moment, a lot of guys act out just to prove themselves, get the last word or show they can't be disrespected. But what they don't realize is that winning that moment can cost them everything: their freedom, their future, even their peace. Sometimes, it's okay to walk away. It's okay to swallow your pride. Back when I was in my early 20s, I didn't see it that way either. Around 2002, I went through something similar. I got jumped by some people I thought were friends, and I remember how badly I wanted payback. But looking back now, I see that restraint, not revenge, is what really defines strength. When I was 21, I learned a hard lesson about choices and consequences. Some guys I thought were my friends turned on me one night, and honestly, I wasn't completely innocent. I'd been drinking, lost control, and the situation spiraled fast. By the end of it, I had a broken jaw in 2 places and woke up in UC Davis Medical Center, getting it wired shut. The pain was brutal. I couldn't eat solid food, lost a ton of weight, and spent days drinking meals through a straw. It was humbling and miserable all at once. Not long after, one of my closest friends came to visit me and asked the question I'd been wrestling with in my head. "What you want to do, man?" I was filled with anger, ready to make someone pay. But then something unexpected happened. His mom came by to see me, and even though I could barely talk, her presence changed everything. I'll never forget that moment. Her name was Sister Thompson. I won't say her full name, but she saw something in me that day most people didn't. She could see the anger and hatred in my eyes. I was burning inside, ready to get revenge, and she didn't lecture me or argue. She just prayed for me. I don't even remember exactly what word she said, but somehow, that prayer stayed with me. Not long after, my mom got me out of Sacramento for a while, and I went back to DC to clear my head. Years later, after traveling and even spending some time in Europe, I came back home. And out of nowhere, I ran into one of the guys who'd jumped me. We saw each other in a grocery store, and instead of anger, there was peace. We talked, laughed a little, even hugged it out. Both of us a little tipsy, but it was genuine. And that moment made me realize how far I'd come. When I was younger, I would have thrown away my whole life over that situation, all because of pride. But time, pain, and grace taught me better. That's why I look at someone like Derrick Groves and see a man who made that same mistake, letting pride and emotion ruin his future. Now he's sitting behind bars, wishing he could turn back time, wishing he'd chosen peace over pride. Because once you've lost your freedom, you finally understand how much life still had to offer, and how one decision can take it all away. If you'd had the chance to think it through, you wouldn't have done it. You'd be living a completely different life right now. And you know what? That's okay. What matters is learning from it. That's what every man should take away from Derrick Groves' story. Stay away from that life. It's not worth it. The streets, the violence, the pride, none of it gives back what it takes from you. Life is beautiful, and there are so many opportunities, people, and experiences waiting for you if you just choose a better path. There's a whole world out there to see and learn from. Look at what some of our brothers are doing overseas, living freely, building, exploring, seeing the world. I've had the blessing to live in Uganda, to walk through Dubai, to travel across Europe, to touch nearly every continent. Those experiences showed me that there's so much more to life than pain, anger, or revenge. You just have to give yourself the chance to see it. I've been blessed to travel across nearly every continent, something I never could have imagined growing up in Del Paso Heights, Sacramento. Back then, the world felt small. My neighborhood was all I knew, and like a lot of young men coming up in similar places, I thought the limits of my environment were the limits of my future. But life has a way of showing you that your starting point doesn't have to be your finish line. The same kid who once looked out at cracked streets and dreamed of something more eventually stood on the sands of Dubai, walked through the bustling markets of Kampala, and stood in the ancient streets of Rome. Every place I've been reminded me of how big this world really is, and how much more there is to life than pride, anger, or proving a point. That's why I always tell my brothers, Don't make a decision that'll haunt you for the rest of your life just to protect your ego. That split-second choice, that moment when you feel like you have to prove you're not weak, that you can't be disrespected, can cost you decades of peace. Too many men lose everything chasing validation that doesn't even matter a week later. They end up behind bars, 6 feet under, or living in regret, all because they couldn't walk away from something small. I've seen it happen too many times. Talented, intelligent men who had potential, who had vision, who could have done something great, throw it all away because they wanted the last word. But here's the truth. The strongest man in the room is often the one who walks away. Life has so much more to offer when you learn to let go of ego and focus on purpose. I've been in places I never dreamed of, met people from every walk of life. Business owners, artists, engineers, even kids who just wanted to learn. What I learned from all of them is that success isn't about being the loudest or the toughest. It's about being consistent, humble, and disciplined. It's about understanding that your energy is your currency. When you spend it on drama, beef, and chaos, you're wasting the very thing that could build your future. But when you invest that energy into growth, into self-improvement, into your goals, that's when everything starts to change. I tell young men all the time, there's too much opportunity out here to be wasting time on nonsense. The internet has made it possible to build a brand, start a business, learn a skill, and reach people across the world. All on your phone. You can make money legally, build a name, and help others at the same time. There's no excuse anymore. We live in a time where you can create your own lane. You don't need to follow the crowd or prove yourself to anyone. The real flex is peace of mind. The real power is being able to walk away from chaos and still win. When I look back, I'm grateful that I didn't let my younger anger define my future. There were moments when I could have made a choice that would have cost me everything. I've been there, feeling like you need to respond, like you have to show you're not soft. But age and experience teach you that every reaction has a price. The more you value your peace, the less you're willing to pay that price. I'd rather be called soft and successful than tough and trapped. So I'm saying this to every young brother listening. Your future is worth more than your pride. You've got too much potential to be caught up in street drama or emotional decisions. There's a whole world out here waiting for you, places you've never seen, people you haven't met, and opportunities you haven't imagined. Go see it. Go live it. Let your story be about transformation, not tragedy. Let people talk if they want. Your success will silence them louder than your words ever could. Wherever you're from, Del Paso Heights, Chicago, Memphis, Baltimore, Nairobi, wherever, don't let your zip code limit your vision. You can travel. You can build. You can start over. You can become more. You can be the one that changes the story for your family. And once you get out there, once you see what the world has to offer, you'll realize that all that street stuff, all that proving yourself, it's nothing compared to living free, safe, and fulfilled. So stay out of the drama. Stay out of the chaos. Focus on building something real, something that will outlast the noise. Surround yourself with people who want to see you win, not people who want to see you fall. There's too much money, too many blessings, and too many chances to grow to waste your time on anything that doesn't push you forward. Don't let one bad moment steal your entire future. Be smarter, move wiser, and protect your peace like it's the most valuable thing you own, because it is, and that's real talk. This is your boy, Ashay Duke Jackson, back at it again with another episode of the Celebrity Junk. I appreciate every one of you for rocking with me, for listening, for learning, and for growing together. Remember, it's not about where you start, it's about how you finish. Stay focused, stay humble, and keep grinding toward greatness. Until next time, don't forget to subscribe, hit that bell, and keep chasing your purpose. We out.